What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. Athletor podcast coming at you. This week's guest is none other than Cyler Sanderson, Sanderson Wrestling Academy. We got into some really interesting stuff as it pertains to NCAA wrestling, what that looks like moving forward, and really what effects it's going to have on the high school athletes that are aspiring to be NCAA athletes. We also get a little bit into how he came up through the sport and how his dad was such an amazing influence on him and his brothers in this sport and also in life. All that and more coming up next. Athletor podcast. Athletor podcast back again. Cyler Sanderson. Hey, thank you very much for coming on today. I appreciate you taking time away from your wife and your family of two boys now, which is congratulations. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yep. Always fun to be on, so appreciate it.
Yeah. So, all right. One of my thoughts, going into this podcast was I think that there might be a small contingent of people that understand the way that you came up through this sport and how it might be different from what they think. Because I think a lot of folks see that there is they think that there's just one way to kind of come up through this sport. In terms of, there's a lot of overbearing dads out there. Your dad was not overbearing. There's a lot of people that focus solely on the competition aspect of the sport. Your dad didn't do that. I'm really curious if you could kind of run through your experience coming up through the sport of wrestling and how you think it differs from what people believe the Sanderson household was like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people believe about our household or what it was like or what it would have been like. But as far my experience, I didn't know anything but wrestling. I think it was probably the same way for my brothers. I'm enough younger than Cody, Kel, and Cole that they were already all competing as I came into the world. So Kale is my youngest older brother. So it goes Cody, Cole, Kale. And Kale is 7 years older than me. So, I was at every tournament possible from birth, at all the duels,
Infant.
everything, Yeah, I mean, I can sleep better at a wrestling tournament than I can in a silent room just because
People don't
that's
understand
where I
that.
slept.
People do not understand that. My wife will go to an event and there'll be a break or something like that, and she's like, "Why don't you sleep now?" I'm like, "There's no whistles. I can't sleep now." I just I can crawl up under a bleacher and knock off for half an hour, and I'll get the best sleep in my life in a bustling gymnasium. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I wanted to wrestle uh as long as I can remember. My dad didn't put us in wrestling. One thing he did to all of us is he made us ask. And I know that he sent Kel and Cole home for a year after he brought them to practice the first time because they just couldn't, pay attention. So he's like, "You guys, if you're going to be here, you got to do what everybody else is doing." So he actually made them go home for another year before they got to come back to practice, which is funny. And I remember, I can still I have a vivid memory of me driving in the car. We used to have a minivan, and me just asking my dad, like, "Hey, can I wrestle this year?" He's like, "You want to wrestle?" I'm like, "I do. I really want to wrestle." He's like, okay, maybe next year." So there was never this push to get into it. When we did do it, there was an expectation that we do it right. I mean, obviously we were goofy kids as well. We probably messed around a little bit, but we were expected to pay attention and work hard. And I think the expectation from my parents, I've thought about this a lot just recently, but the expectation was,
Hey, don't go anywhere. It's Mike.
We'll get back to the podcast in just a second. We got to pay the bills though. Do you have an athlete that's looking to break into the social media space? We at athletorlive.com have a brand new in-depth tutorial done by none other than Caden Henshaw. If you don't know who Caden is, he's not even a Division I wrestler, yet he's got hundreds of thousands of engaged followers. Learn how to create engaging content, grow your followers, and open up new opportunities in the NIL space. Go to athletorlive.com/Caden and we'll give you the first module completely free.
It's just our best effort all the time. And if we gave our best effort and lost, that's great. If we gave our best effort and won, that's also great. But there was never any pressure to win, win, win. My dad was always talked about get better every day, from year to year, from season to season, from match to match, just get better. He always said, if you get this much better every day, by the end of the season, it's so much. And that was his focus. The only times I ever remember him getting frustrated with me as a wrestler is one, like sportsmanship issues, and that only happened once or twice. I kicked a garbage can and threw my headgear one time, and I feared for my life that day. But and then just the expectation, like if we went out there and didn't fight and didn't work hard on the mat, then he would probably talk to us about that. But it was just a very positive experience for me. I never felt like
I
I
gotta tell
had to wrestle.
that, in fact, I'm gonna take it to the opposite end of the spectrum. One of the things that I remember you telling me, I think we were at that camp in Las Vegas. And I think I remember you telling me that your dad had, he was a teacher, so he had a summer job, and he'd be gone for doggone near the whole summer, and he'd just leave you like, hey, you want to train, here's how you should do it. And it was pretty much up to you guys. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my dad was a river guide in the Grand Canyon when I was growing up. That was his summer gig.
That's pretty
And when
dope,
you
by
do
the
that,
way. That's a pretty
yeah,
cool
it's awesome.
like side gig. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was fun, and that's a cool part. We actually, my whole family went this summer, kind of as a just a celebration of his time doing that job. It was pretty neat. But anyway, he would be gone. When he would go, for him really to benefit financially from it, the way that you cashed in is you'd go week to week to week. So he'd be gone 3 weeks at a time sometimes in the summer, and the conversation was, hey, you guys know how to train, you know what to do, here's a list of things you need to work on, you guys are there every day, go to work, go figure it out, go work hard, and that was just what we did, and everybody wanted to wrestle, like I said, so it was never a chore for me, especially as a youth and high school athlete.
Did you
And I think that my brothers feel the same way. Obviously I can't speak for them, but I don't imagine that they felt much differently.
was that different than the experience of the kids around you? Like, did you? Because like, I'll be okay. I'm going to give you one example. I know he doesn't listen to this podcast because he wants nothing to do with wrestling at our age. Okay, but a guy that I grew up with, a guy named Brian Russo, he was all world when we were in, you know, little league wrestling. Like, he was all world. Like this kid was just butt kicker of all butt kickers, right? And we started going to the clubs and stuff like that. And so people people started to catch up to him a little bit. He wound up placing a couple times in the New Jersey State tournament. But I can remember he had his license before I did. So he would be in charge of driving us to the club. And there was more than one occasion where he was like, yeah, we're not going. And like that was it. Like all right, I guess we're not going to the club tonight. Like so. What was your experience and your excitement to wrestle different than a lot of the people around you?
At the time, I don't know if I noticed as a kid, because you're kind of just in your own world, and you're with your own family, and you guys just do what you do. It wasn't apparent to me at that time. And I think within the program that my dad built, I hear him tell stories now, and we swap stories as coaches, and I ask him for advice, and I ask him about different things, and he has more to say about it now that I'm older. But I think he had a pretty positive culture that he had built at Wasatch High School, and we had a
Mhm.
lot of great wrestlers. We had a lot of committed kids, and he had worked his guts out to help them. And I don't know, it was pretty good. And now, like I said, now he shared some stories with me about how, different kids and different families
More
and things, and
challenging.
just challenging, and how he worried about those kids not really loving it and things like that. Uh, but
But that's not something that you really saw firsthand on a
not
consistent
as a
basis.
not as a kid. Now as a coach, I see it a lot more because I think I'm aware of it, and my goal is to help these kids get better and, help them have a positive experience. And sometimes when they're not having that positive experience, sometimes you notice things where, like, man, their focus is just a little bit too trophy driven at 7,
Sure.
you know, or, like, if we got young guys that are cutting weight all the time, their focus is probably more on winning than it is on development. And so there's little hints of things that people might do that make it clear that, I don't know. And they're all great people. I love all of them,
No,
and we
that's the
try to help them. But
thing. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it is important to understand that like these are still great human beings, right? Just because they don't love, like I love go like I love getting up in the morning and running the bleach. I just did. I liked it. I thought it felt good to go into first period after a workout. Like I thought it was great. But the other guys I was
I
running
have
with,
to say,
they didn't like it as much.
even like even some of my favorite kids that I've coached over the years haven't necessarily been the guys that have been the most committed in wrestling. I mean, I love there's a lot of those guys that I really like too, but some of my favorite personalities and kids that I just get along with aren't always the guys that are all in. They're just goofy guys and they're fun to be around, you know? So
Who's the 120 that's in your room all the time? I love that kid to death. I saw him this past
I
weekend at Doc B.
yeah, I'm sure you're talking about Lander.
Yeah,
Uh
Lander. He's just a goofball.
yeah.
Love that kid to death.
He and he's been fun since the beginning. He's a good positive energy in the room. He's really helpful to the other kids, and he just is goofy. He knows every kid from every team everywhere in the country, and he's like bros with them. Like, dude, how do you know these guys? Like, I didn't know
That's
anybody when
awesome.
I was in high school, you know.
Fair enough.
But
All right, now let's. I kind of want to segue a little bit because we have a lot of NCAA coaches that come on this podcast, and
yeah,
by all accounts, right now we are entering what is probably going to be a difficult time in the NCAA. Okay,
yeah,
kid like Lander, right? Who I think is he's ranked top 20 somewhere in the country. I think yes,
yeah. And he
if
he
not
beats
close.
nationally ranked guys. He places. He won preseason. Like I mean, he's right there with a lot of
Right.
guys. He's
So
tough.
he's there, right? So, but here's the thing: I don't know if there's going to be a spot on an NCAA Division One roster for a kid like that for very much longer. How much are you paying attention as a club coach to what's going on at the NCAA level?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's concerning because you've had so many guys for so long that they're almost there, or they're there, they're knocking on the door, they're beating really great guys, they're really talented, they work hard, they have good grades, so many of the things that coaches are looking for. But with the roster cap, Well, the point is, in the past, I've been able to call guys or call coaches and say, "Hey, this guy's worth the risk." A guy like Terrell Bearclough wasn't really getting any. I don't know if you know him, but he's been on
I
Penn
do.
State's roster for 4 years, and beating a lot
And now
of
he's at
good
UVU.
guys. Yeah,
And
he's at
he's
UVU,
making a
but
lot of waves, but he's making a lot of waves 5 years later. Like he took
well,
five
and when
years
he
in a Penn
was,
State room.
he was one of the guys coming out of high school that was just doing everything right. You know, so hard working, great student, all the right things, good kid, the person that you want in your room, builds up other people, great family, but hadn't really made enough of an impact nationally to get the attention that I thought he was, um, maybe not deserving of, but capable of, you know? And so I was calling coaches. I tried to get a handful of coaches to take a risk on him. They're like, he just doesn't have the credentials. And Kel was willing to take a risk on him, and he was one of the best guys in their room, especially practice wise, for the last 4 years. And they loved having him there. But the days of kids that are in that boat might be shorter, you know. And I think
Yeah.
that the pathway to for some of those kids now, I'm hoping that the other divisions really take a strong influx of high level athletes to where, maybe we see D2, like there's great wrestlers in D2, but maybe there's a lot more really high level wrestlers going into some of those other divisions because that's what's available for their education now. Or D3, or maybe they're starting JUCO more often than they have been in the past, uh, to get that
Do
shot.
you think that that's going to be much more, especially considering that it's not going to count against your eligibility? Do you think that the college route will be more? Because look,
More productive
I don't know
and
when it happened. Yeah, I don't know when it happened though, because and let me preface this by saying it was probably somewhere around the early 2000s. There was this divide that happened in a big way of like, okay, there used to be, and we've all heard the stories of guys that have won D3s and then got a ticket to the NCAA Division I championships and then won that, right? Like there have been a handful of guys that have done that. Um, but somewhere along the line, the chasm between Division I and every other division got much greater, right? Like
yeah.
I can remember Daringer wrestled at a Beat the Streets event, and this is after his, I think, second or third uh, NCAA title, and he wrestled a four-time national champion from, I believe it was like a Division III school. I could be wrong, and he smoked him. Like he smoked him. Now, somewhere along the line, the chasm got much greater. Do you think, in your estimation, do you think that you're going to see more guys go to that junior college level, go to that Division II level, go to Division III?
I think so. I mean, if they want to wrestle at that level and they're not getting those opportunities at the D1 level, they got to go somewhere. And, you know, and it's a great option. And maybe they have the chance to move up. I mean, you go win a D2 national title, and maybe the college coaches start looking there a little more often because they recognize that these guys that they've been taking chances on are no longer in the wing, in their own room. They got to find them somewhere else now. And I don't know, sometimes a little easier to take a risk on a national champion from another division than it is on a unproven high school senior. You know what I mean? But I
Sure.
remember those days. I remember like guys that, I mean, I can think of a handful of names that were JUCO guys that ended up being Division I national champs. Right? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that was TJ Williams. I'm pretty sure,
Hmm.
um, there was another guy in that era that was around the same weight. I think he did the same thing. Was he a Northern Iowa guy? I can't remember, but I mean,
Moffitt. I mean, look,
there were some
Cormier,
dogs,
right?
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some dogs back
So,
then that went that route.
and and I think we're going to see a lot more of it, right? Because
Yeah,
if there's no roster spots, if there's a 30-man roster cap for each of these teams, they're just not going to be able to take a risk on a kid that, even if it's like a grades thing. Well, go to JUCO for 2 years, prove that you can handle the workload, plus you can handle the workload in wrestling. And I think, man, it's interesting to me. But
It's
here's the
it's
thing.
tough.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's
Go
tough.
ahead.
Like college wrestling all around, and I don't want to bring up multiple issues, but it's getting harder and harder for college coaches, and even the ones who I have access to some of the better you know within my own family. There's guys that they coach obviously on the highest level, and they are frustrated. I think just with between the roster caps and the NIL and the transfers and all the things encompassing that are in college wrestling right now, it's just not as fun in terms of maybe from a coaching standpoint, you know, because there's just some factors that make it a little less appealing than it was 5 years ago before some of those things came into play.
Yeah, I could see
So
that.
it's
You couldn't pay me enough to be a Division I coach right now. No chance.
yeah,
I mean,
it's tough.
it's hard. It's really, really hard. And there's no for me, the risk is not worth the reward. I don't know that we're gonna have 80 teams in the 2026 NCAA championships. I I am not convinced of that at all. I'm hearing there's going to be, come August, there's going to be probably upwards of 10 to 12, probably more programs that are cut. Are you hearing the same thing?
I mean, there's always whispers of that stuff. It's hard to know. I haven't had like a real strong conversation with someone about it, but you always hear little things, and it's hard to know what is really going to happen and not happen. I mean, I hope that that's not the case because it's not great for anybody. You know.
Mm. Yeah, I wonder, I I wonder what it does to high school wrestling. That's really kind of my biggest fear. Like, look,
Mhm.
if I talked with, I'm pretty close with Guerrero, and he's one of them. He's saying, boy, oh boy, in 10 years from now, like, so he has little ones too, right? Like, he has two boys under the age of 3. Excuse me. And he's like, I've got to bring my high school son to the NCAA championships now and make memories that way, because I don't know that it's going to look the same when my other boys are old enough to want to go to the NCAA championships and be a spectator and do all the fanfare
Yeah.
stuff. And I just don't know that that's going to be the case. Um, but what does that do to high school wrestling? You know,
Yeah.
we
I.
fought
I.
so hard to have this pie in the sky of the Olympics, which is the pie in the sky for the NCAA athletes. Well, what does it do to the high school athletes? And what does the sport look like moving forward because of it?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough question. Because you wonder how quick the ripple effect will go down. I mean, I think that the wrestling in the high school, uh, at least the maintaining of the programs and all that stuff should continue to exist for. I think it would last much longer than the college, because it's just been a staple sport for so long. I don't really see any reason for high schools to drop wrestling. I think
Right.
it's just like, is the quality of wrestling go down because the opportunity of moving beyond high school gets slimmer, and I don't know,
True.
and maybe what happens is we shift and there's some other opportunity with some other organization. I don't know. I keep thinking that the UFC or somebody needs to like start a folk style wrestling circuit, but I don't know. That's a great question. It's a scary question because I have two boys and I would love for them to opportunity have the opportunity to go through wrestling and do all the things that I did if that's what they want. And if it's not there, that'll kind of suck.
Yeah,
So
I think it, but Here's the interesting part to me, though. We're moving in the direction of clubs at a high school level anyway. I think that the things that you and I are doing with the P&L, like there are some, so I think that that's going to play a much bigger role in high school. So let's look at it this way. As of right now, as it stands right now, I don't know about Utah, but I'm pretty safe when I say no kid in middle school really cares about their middle school season. It's a 6 week season. If they're a real good middle school wrestler, they're at a club, they're going to the I'm just giving, like, I'm not saying whether they should or they shouldn't, but they're going to the Tulsas of the world, they're going to preseason nationals, they're going to the P&L events, they're wrestling a national schedule, right? Something
Right.
tells me that we're probably going to move in that direction for high schools sooner rather than later. Now, I'm not saying that there's not value in competing for your high school team, because there's a tremendous amount of value. But I also think that if you just look at the trend and the way that the sport is moving, I think that people are going to put a lot more, and they're also financially invested in the club, right? Parents are paying to go to your club. I think that they're like, parents are going to say, does he need to go to this high school practice every day and get probably worse? Or can he fulfill what he needs to technically, conditionally, socially, emotionally? Can he get all those things from a club atmosphere like Sanderson Wrestling Academy?
One thing that I was thinking about, kind of as you were talking too, is that shift that has already taken place in other sports.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how many men's gymnastics
Baseball.
programs are there in college? Like six,
Yeah.
like
None.
not many. But I know I drive up the road 20 minutes and there's a gymnastics gym, and I drive down the road 30 minutes and there's a gymnastics gym. And I'm not saying wrestling is gymnastics, but I think that those things will continue to exist
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
Probably
But
flourish. Mm-hmm.
yeah, um, and I think a lot of sports have shifted that way, because even high school soccer is that way now. I mean, high school soccer has college and it has professional, but I know in high school the majority. So in Utah, there's a couple huge soccer organizations, and the best kids
Mm-hmm.
don't play high school soccer. They
They don't.
play No, they play club soccer, and because that's where they're getting recruited. They're getting recruited big time by these, to by these by colleges, and even professionally sometimes from these clubs. So
Yeah, I think that that's probably going to be the direction that we see a lot of these sports going. And it's hard to blame them, right? I mean, you know, I just don't know. I just don't know how feasible it is to compete with, like look at it this way, right? Daniel Cormier owns a club. He was a high level athlete. You own a club. You're a high level athlete. Lawrence Paulson, you know, Larkin, high level athletes that have chosen over the course of the last 20 years not to go the college wrestling coaches route, to open up clubs and teach kids. David Taylor had at M2, right? Like he got to the pinnacle of the sport. I think with the influx of high level coaching at a youth level, why would you not continue to go along this route? No?
yeah, and I think you see a lot of that too. One, because people want to help their own kids, but two, like we were talking about earlier, the challenges of coaching college wrestling. Um, they're significant, and I mean, there's a lot of challenges in coaching club wrestling, but can't get fired. You know, I don't have
No,
to.
we won't fire me.
You know what I mean? Like, it's different, you know, and I think people see the club route as a more free opportunity to kind of do what they want and be who they are and coach the way they want to coach and not be bound down by uh, bureaucracy and all the stuff that they have to deal with being in a
Yeah,
university setting.
man. I can remember I was a small junior college coach, and I think I brought it up on the last podcast that just came out, but it's worth repeating. I can remember, first of all, my AD hated me, hated me. And here was the worst part. The biggest I don't know for sure, but I think the biggest reason that he hated me was because I really was into it. Do you know that this son of a gun, he was a principal at a high school in New York City for 35 years, okay? He retires as a principal and takes a job as an AD in New Jersey so that he can get two pensions. I'm not mad at him. Good for you. But he would walk around the administration office telling people, "This is my retirement job. This is my retirement job," right? So like some people go get a job at Home Depot, or greeting people at Walmart. He's actually got the lives or the livelihood of people, young people in his hands. And he's so flippant about it. It used to drive me nuts. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case at Division I schools because this is a junior college level. But I do know that there is a tremendous amount of complacency. There's a tremendous amount of, what can I do? I'm just, I'm an AD. I got to cut programs. I got to cut programs. Sorry. There's
Yeah.
so much of
Well,
that.
even some athletic directors like I've known about in the past that um, just they don't even care if their teams win or they don't, there's no like they care about things outside, they care about other things more than they care about their teams being successful. Like I've heard a lot about like ads like that in the past. And
Well, give me an example. What would they care about more, for example?
mm, political endeavors, they like that. um,
Okay.
they care more about their appearance to the world and things they bring to pass in a political manner more than actually helping their wrestling teams be successful or their whatever team be successful. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't want to venture too much into that conversation, but
I can,
Understood.
I feel like when we were, not we, but when I was in college, our athletic director basically started a beginning of the year meeting with like, I don't really like the wrestling team, but I can't get rid of you guys. And so that was kind
yeah.
of like the support, that a lot of programs start with, which obviously makes it difficult.
Yeah,
Buddy,
and having
let me
a
tell you
I tell
something.
you what, well, having
Like,
a supportive athletic director makes all the difference in the world, you know,
mhm.
uh, for a lot of coaches. Even I know my brothers, they have a great athletic director right now. They love the guy. He's super supportive. He wants them to be successful. He's trying to help them build and grow. And that wasn't always the case for them. And so it's a game changer on a level that you might not be able to understand unless you're in that position, you know.
I had to fight. I had to like every day I got out of my truck and I felt like I was like warming up for a fight. Like I would get
Yeah.
butterflies in my stomach. It was that like it was this vitriol that I grew inside me. I remember my wife saying after I handed in my letter of resignation, the next day she's like, "You're a different dude. Like you're just happier."
Yeah.
Like, what made you what made you go back there for 8 years? Like, I spent 8 freaking years trying to build it. Like, it was just a fight every single day, and I know I'm not the only one that was dealing with that. And I certainly am not the only one that was dealing with that on that level. And I can't even imagine what it's like being so frustrated with, like, let's just use Kale for an example, going to the administration and going, we're winning everything. All I'm asking for is this. And we're winning everything. All I'm asking for is this. And it's just like, nah, I don't think so. You know how frustrating that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And as a club coach, there's been I've had probably 9, 10 opportunities to at least go interview for decent jobs at the next level. And I just, there's one coach at a Division One coach, a good friend of mine. Um, every time I see him, he's like, "Hey, you're gonna be our RTC guy, or you're gonna be this, you're gonna be this." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not. I have no desire to." And especially you spend 10 years building the club, and you finally get to a point where you're like, "This is rolling. We got some good kids. We have enough kids. Like it's fun. Like it's hard. I work my butt off every day, but guess what? I mean, I'm not worried about anybody taking it from me. Like if I fail,
Sure.
it's because I fail, not because someone cuts my program. I'm eating what I'm killing, and that's the way I want to live. You know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are waking up to that, man. I think a lot of people are waking up to that because it it is getting increasingly more, and even just the bureaucracy. Like, let's just talk about high school wrestling coaches. Just the
Yeah.
bureaucracy, like that they have to deal with. Like,
Yeah.
let me
For
get this
sure.
straight. Let me get this straight. Poway High School last year goes to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame duels, and they lost on criteria to Edmond North. But let's just pretend we live in a world where we won that duel meet. They don't get to wrestle for a national title against Wyoming Seminary because they're in a different league. What? That's nonsense. That's not like they're like, who are we protecting with this rule that is just a rule to be a rule, right? California teams can't compete against, the prep teams. Why?
Yeah, that's bullcrap. Yeah, I forgot about that rule. California has a bunch of crappy rules like that.
Oh, they're the worst. The worst.
And even like within the districts within Utah, there's like certain districts that kids can only do one overnight event a year.
Why?
Some of them can do
Who are we
many.
protecting? What? How is that protecting anyone?
They're trying to keep football teams from having an advantage in some way or some like it's like who cares, dude? Like just let these kids be the best they can be and for them to be the best they can be, they have to venture out. Like Utah kids don't reach an elite level if they stay home. You know what I mean? We got to go to Ironman. We got to go to Doc B. We got to go to Super 32. We got to do PNL. We got to go to Fargo. Like if we don't do all of those things, there's a pretty low ceiling that's hard to break through. If you do all those things, it's still sometimes hard to get to the most elite level, but they're a must. And if you got somebody, pigeonholing you and saying, sorry, can't do that, like, who wants to deal with that?
Can't train on Sundays. Huh?
You know,
You can't train. What?
whatever it is.
It's just
Well,
nonsense,
in
man.
schools,
It's
I mean, the amount of days that coaches can't train, like in like the schools are locked up and this one, how much the high schools want to charge their own high school coaches to run a club out of their facility. Stuff like that.
bonkers.
Like, are you
Bonkers.
kidding me? Like the goal first of all, okay, maybe they make what, $1,500 a season, maybe
Yeah.
$2,500. Like they're not making money for the most part,
Mhm.
right? And you're making it impossible for them to even have an opportunity to help their kids progress because of the $100 an hour that you're charging them for the freaking wrestling room. Crazy
$100 an hour. That was,
stuff like
what's
that.
funny, man. And even, yeah, it's something like that. But the point is though that my first and lawmakers, like, so I'm dealing with the CIF now, but when I was in Jersey, it was the NJSIA. When I would ask one question, and I would never get an answer. It's one word question: why? Why? Why can we not wrestle prep teams? Why can we not have more than one overnight event in a season? Why can we not compete on Sundays? The answer, the only answer that I would get consistently was, well, that's just the way it's always been. Why is that good? Like, why is that a thing? Like that's
We did
not,
things the
like, I
way they've
try to tell
always
my
been done,
kids.
we'd be we still have horse and buggy, you know.
That's
You
right.
got to evolve.
You know, so I guess, you know, I could. How about this? You want to talk about bureaucracy? I the New Jersey State Youth tournament is a big freaking deal. Like it's like thousands upon thousands of kids, siphoning through the course of 2 weekends. It's a big deal, between the age groups and now two different divisions for boys and girls. It's a pretty big event. The USA Wrestling came to me and was like, "Hey, you guys have a huge gym at your junior college. Would you consider hosting the state tournament?" I was like, "Heck yeah, we would." Think about that. I mean, we could do our fundraising in 2 weekends. Do you know that my
Right.
AD told me that he wasn't sure that he'd be able to pay the janitors to work
Oh
on
my
a
gosh.
Sunday? What? And he's like, "Oh yeah, and by the way, there's a tennis class that meets on Sunday mornings that I'm not sure we can move it." I'm like, I will pay
Can't
for them to
cancel
go
it
to
for
the tennis club.
one freaking day.
Or
You know
how
what I
about
mean?
this? I'll pay for them. I literally said I will pay for them to go to a racquetball club and use their courts for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah, because
nah.
you guys probably could have. I mean, between gate, I don't know if there's gate and all those things. You guys probably could have made
Concessions.
20 grand
Yeah.
in a weekend.
Yeah.
You
We were
know, or I don't know,
probably
maybe more.
looking at
But
upward. No, it was about 20 grand a day for 4 days. I'm like, we're doing like, and now and then on the other hand, he tells me, "Hey, this you qualified all 10 for nationals. That's great. That's great. Congratulations. This one kid, it's 174. He got a wild card. Do we have to really pay for him to go to nationals?" Yeah, yeah, you do. I
freaking
was
turd.
like, I'm like,
Freaking.
we're not really having this.
That's
You
what you
know.
call a friggin' turd.
Yeah, he was
Uh,
bad. Bob Wisniewski, if you're listening, you stink. You stink on ice. All right, that's enough of that.
let's find him.
Let's talk about the club, man.
Yeah.
You guys are pulling away from the not just Utah, but from a majority of the region up there as the premier club. What type of systems do you have in place to ensure the longevity of some of these kids moving forward? Right, like, when do you start them competing? When do you suggest that they start wrestle on a national level? When do you how rigid is your technical I guess how rigid is your technical um curriculum, I guess I would say.
Yeah, all good questions. I mean, one, um, always trying to get better. You know, like that's step one, whatever that means, whether that means within our own internal systems or, just sending emails or whatever the case might be. Running practice, having the right amount of coaches, technique. The point is, like, if we're not getting better, then someone's going to beat us. So, we've got to get better every day. We got to get better from year to year. Sometimes it's hard to see that progress immediately, even if you're doing the things that are going to lead to it. I think that's one of the hardest things about kids is they're learning all the right things, they're doing all the right things, and they don't immediately get the results. Sometimes it takes years. upon years. I would say, as far as the technical aspect goes, there's staples of things that we do that I think are really important. It's mostly positional stuff, because when I watch the World Championships and the Olympics and the NCAA's, I study a lot of that stuff. In my opinion, like, you can be an NCAA champ with a good single, with a good high C, with a good fireman's, with a good low single, with a good snap. It doesn't really matter. Um, like, you can be good at anything almost and reach the highest level. Like, I mean, maybe not, maybe like a, I don't know, a headlock, but maybe, but
Maybe.
I think, like, we have a system in place and we have positions that I think kids have to win in order to excel, so it's more of like a positional based process. And those positions change. Like, we have to score from a front headlock. We have to be able to shoot and recover in a front headlock. We have to be able to, like, I'm thinking about kids right now, but we have to clear our elbow. Like, we have to freaking clear our elbow. There's 50 ways to do it, but like, we have to be able, there's like check marks. You got to be able to do these things. And once you can do those things, then we can start building on your technical abilities, and we can start getting trickier, and we can start having a little bit more fun with some of it. But like, on our feet, our head position, our head hands defense, like our penetration drills, we do a lot of stuff that I think are underlying base skills that a lot of people don't spend time on. That if you don't spend a ton of time on those skills, like, you don't lay that foundation, the the peak of your pyramid or whatever is much lower, right? Because the base has to
Mm.
be wide. Like, you have to be able to penetrate on shots. I don't know. That's just like one example. You got to
Yeah.
be able to
Well, I
control the
think I
path.
think the best example you just gave was that short offense position. It's not sexy to drill that, right? That doesn't look good when you're on the warm up mat to drill clearing front headlocks. It doesn't look sexy to do that on the mat before the finals of but if you're not spending an a deliberate amount of time in that position, man, you're losing. You're going to lose. You're going to lose those
Yeah.
positions, and you're probably going to lose the matches. It's really important.
And it's always the process of, like, uh why competition is so important is that it's not even because I mean, competition's fun. It's fun to win. It's fun to compete. Like, if you don't enjoy competing, it's hard to reach a high level. But, like, that competition is just, it shows you what you need to improve on. Just like a dumb little thing that we started working on this week. Well, just it's a go behind position, but our guys were like clearing their legs and then giving the legs back, and like letting the guy retake the legs. Like, man, if you clear those legs, like, hips in, like, get on your toes, circle behind, or I don't know, there's different options there, but you're just always trying to identify your kids' weaknesses and improve on them. And one thing that I think about a lot, and I think this is the way that my dad coached. Um, he always said, like, you have to have like a vision of how you want the athlete to look in your mind 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as a junior, senior in high school. Like, what do you want that to be? What is the final product? And every practice and every drill and everything you do is built
Work
around
towards that.
creating that product. And that may shift. It may, you may have to grab this, you may have to grab that, you may have to, like, completely get rid of this that you were, like, sold on.
Right, but
But,
that
like,
vision.
this is the vision of the product that I want. I have to create that. And that doesn't mean every kid that you coach is a carbon copy and they all look the same. That's not the point, but they all excel at all of these things. And if you can create a process to develop that guy, you know, um, then I think you're on the right path. You also don't want to. I'm also very against, like, limiting what guys can and can't do. One of my favorite kids that I've ever coached is Brock Hardy. Um, you guys know Brock Hardy. He was in our club for a couple
Mhm.
years, and I wrestled him a lot. And Brock would always say, "Hey, coach, can I do this?" And it's like, I don't know, Brock, can you do it? Like, can you do it to me? Can you do it to a good guy? Because if you can, like, who am I to tell you that that's wrong? Like, that's the beauty of
Absolutely.
wrestling. Every rule in wrestling is, there's a lot of rules, and they're all meant to be broken. Uh,
Sure.
based on experience and effort, or based on experience and time and things like that. But I really like the idea though of seeing that product. Um, and sometimes you have to adjust things because guys need to be that product sooner. Because like when I was going through, you could be that product as a senior in high school and still get really highly recruited. Where now, like if you're not almost there as a sophomore, it's just harder. Like those guys
Sure,
are getting scooped up so fast. So
sure.
you have to shift some of those things. And so for us, like I listened to, you posted like a little video and it was like asking when guys should start competing nationally. Um, I think it was maybe today I saw that. But
Mhm.
and I think that's a great question. But I also think that that question is also dependent on where you're at and who your guys are and what you mean by competing nationally. Because like if you're in PA and you're getting this consistent tough competition week in and week out, maybe you don't need to travel at all. But for
Mhm.
us, like I feel like if our kids don't start getting out of the state by sixth grade, fifth grade, sometimes sixth grade, it's hard for them to close some of those gaps. If they wait till they're in high school, unless they're just a freak, it's like too
Yeah,
late. And it's
sure.
not even about winning. It's not about going to Tulsa and winning. It's not
No,
about going to
no, it has
freak show
nothing
and
to do
winning.
with it.
It's about like exposure therapy. It's about
Yeah,
being in the big venue. It's about all the noise. It's about people yelling. It's about being able to just execute your technique and what you're good at in a stressful situation that you don't normally feel. Right. And that's the growth we're looking for. It's not like, yeah, if you win Tulsa, sweet, cool, like you're a Tulsa champ,
yeah,
whoopee.
has
But
nothing to do with
like,
that.
and I'm happy for you. But like, I want our kids to go so that they can feel that like little bit of pressure that is going to come when they start going to Fargo and when they start going to Super 32. Because if they've never seen that, it takes them two
It's
years to get
daunting.
used to it.
Oh yeah, it's a
Yeah,
daunting thing. Do you know what's funny about just going back to that video that I posted the other day? The one answer. So for people that don't know, I posted that video asking what age kids start competing at a national level, and then I checked in with a bunch of the P&L coaches to see when they thought, and they all had different ideas. The one that really kind of struck me, but it didn't make the cut just because Zach got it to me too late, was Zach Dominguez said, "Well, it depends on what style." I'm like, "Really? How's that?" And he's like, "Well, I think it's a far more freeing style. Freestyle and Greco are far more freeing styles in that they can kids can just kind of have fun and goof off and stuff like that. So I would start them younger at a national level with freestyle and Greco.
mhm,
Folk style probably 2 years later at a national level. And I thought that was really interesting. I never really thought about it that way. And those guys really are freestyle and Greco focused, and it shows, right? They show out in Fargo for sure. Um, but yeah, there's just different ways. I knew going into that video that there's not a definitive answer, nor should there be,
yeah,
right? It's a case by case basis. But I guess what I'm
yep,
trying to
kid
say
by
is
kid.
there's different ways of looking at this. There's a bunch of different facets, you know?
I'm I'm curious. You talked about developing the vision, the final product, and when you need that, how much of that is driven by you versus driven by the athlete individually?
Well, I think that that's maybe one of the most challenging messages to communicate to athletes and parents. Because when a kid signs up at 8 years old for our club, I'm like, all right, we got 10 years. Like that's what goes through my mind. To make this kid be their best. So this is a long-term goal. And it's like we're doing the right things year in and year out to help them receive or attain their highest possible level. But what's hard with that is I think a lot of parents and a lot of kids, um, they understand the logic of what I'm saying. They understand the value of it, but like really buying in to um, just the process is sometimes hard. And that doesn't mean they won't win a lot right away or
Mhm.
in like if they're doing the right things, they're going to win matches. but they may not, you know? And so getting people to understand, like, yeah, your kid is in the 7th grade. He gets to his ties, he fakes, he moves, his head's in the right place, his hands are in the right place. He's sprawling like on top. His pressure is great. He's getting off the bottom, doing amazing things. But guess what? That kid that he just wrestled has hair on his chest, and your kid like looks like a little baby boy still. And so even though your kid's doing all the right things and they're probably have a higher ceiling or could maybe, I don't know this kid, but like helping them just understand that their kid is getting better and doing really well, you know, that's tough. So it's tough too, because I think part of the process of helping them get to that level and be their best is helping them win matches. It's like, it's not like through the developmental process, we don't win matches. Like, no, part of the developmental process is helping them win when they're up by 1 and there's 30 seconds left, helping them come back from a deficit and win a match. Like, helping them win is part of the puzzle. So it's
Yeah.
not, I don't know, like it's so multifaceted that it's hard to like really pack into one idea. Um,
Yeah.
but and it's like national tournaments. Well, for Tommy, he needs 10 a year. For Jimmy, he needs 1 because he needs to beat the
Mhm.
crap out of a bunch of kids locally because that's what he needs mentally. That's what he
Mhm.
needs to develop the skills that he's working on. But Timmy, he hasn't had a close match in the state in 3 years. Like we got to get him out. We got to get him doing other things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great,
So
man.
you try to, yeah.
Look, talk about winning like that. So there are drawbacks to holding kids back from competition at a national level because my son, I didn't let him compete nationally until he was in 7th grade, until he was going towards that level, right? Like, I mean, no, just beat the crap out of the kids in Texas and that's it. I'm paying for it now because he gave back. He was up by 6. What was he up by 6, Joel? He was up by 6 with 30 seconds left,
Yeah, I
and
think it's up
wound
by
up getting
4,
reversed to his
7-3.
back. Oh, right. It was up by 4. 30 seconds left. Wound up giving it back. With interest. So managing matches is a skill set in and of itself. All right, we're running out of time. Here we
You're
go.
good.
We're gonna start this sprint. Don't think about these questions too much, Kyler. Try your best
Okay.
to answer quickly. And here we go.
I don't like that,
What,
but all right.
I know no one does. What's the best wrestling shoe of all time, Kyler?
The best wrestling shoe of all time, the Asics gels with the purple backs.
Oh,
Old school. I wore them when I
I
was
Man,
like
like
9,
those.
7,
not even
maybe.
gonna throw out your brother's
Old.
shoe, huh?
Oh, no.
I didn't
My
even
favorite
think
ones
about
right
that.
now, I would have to say though, my favorite shoe right now is EXEOs. They just, I like them. They fit good. They're nice quality.
They're
That's
real
my
good.
that's my
What
go-to right now.
colorway do you have?
Right now it's just black on black on black. Clean.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
It's cool. All right. Next one. You only get 4. They got to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Oh, John Smith.
Okay.
Uh, Dave Schultz. I don't know, like modern guys, it's hard for me because like I don't see them as that, right? I mean, I would put my brother on there.
Okay. His name has come up once or twice. Yes. You're
Yeah,
okay there.
John Smith, Dave Schultz, Bobby Douglas, for sure.
Really?
He's one of
I like
the. I
that.
mean, for maybe for different reasons,
Sure.
than
No, the reasons
just
are
showing out.
important to
Yeah.
people, right? Like it has nothing like it's your list, man. But just out of curiosity, what ways do you think he's been so impactful?
I think Bobby Douglas is just one of the unsung heroes of the wrestling world in the United States. I think that he is, from a technical standpoint, one of the most brilliant minds that has ever been in the sport. I think he knows more about wrestling than probably 90% of the college coaches today combined, just from a technical standpoint. Like the dude is just off the charts smart. And
Really?
he, I mean, I played him in chess like 50 times and I got skunked 50 times. Like he's just a brilliant human being. And I wish more people knew his name. So
Yeah, I like that. All right, let's move on. Give us a quick book recommendation.
a quick book recommendation. Can I look real quick?
Take your time, man.
Uh so one that my wife put me on. There's an old school writer. His name's Orson Swett Martin, I think is his name. He wrote a book called Be Good to Yourself. And I think that's that's something that I think wrestlers need.
Yeah,
Because
I
I think
agree
it's
with
such a
that.
I think one of the biggest tragedies of our sport, and maybe other sports are like this too, but I think one of the biggest tragedies of our sport is just that I didn't reach my goal, I wasn't good enough kind of a thing. And the funny thing is it doesn't matter if you're talking to an NCAA champ, they could have been a two-timer. You're talking to an Olympic champ, they could have been a two-timer. Talking to a one-time All-American, they could have been a four, or a qualifier, they could have been an All-American, or like it doesn't matter who you're talking to. It's always this mindset. And I don't think many wrestlers have the ability to just be like, man, you know what? I wasn't an Olympic gold medalist, but I was pretty good. I worked hard, I did, and I learned a lot from this game. And I wish that I wish we didn't connect our identity so much to the wins and the losses, because I think that's a tragedy.
Yeah,
But
I couldn't agree more. And it's developed some gnarly habits with people moving past the sport, and it's a shame. I couldn't agree more, man. Okay, last one. You got a magic wand, and you can change one thing about the sport of wrestling, and it changes tomorrow. What would you change?
ugh, ugh. I don't know, man. That's tough. There's like a lot of things
Hmm.
popping into my head, but really have to think about it. I mean, honestly, I think one thing that would be really cool, like if you could have anything, would be to have a genuine professional level of wrestling beyond college, whether it's folk style or freestyle, but where we have 20, 30 teams around the country. These guys graduate or college at 23, and then they compete till they're 35, and they make a good living doing it. And I think that would be pretty amazing if that was able
Yeah.
to come to fruition.
Have you heard of that claw wrestling?
I
Jo
think I have, yeah.
wrestled Andonian, and it's a hybrid rules, freestyle folk style hybrid rules. It's on a square mat. They have pylons. Did you see that? They have pylons.
Mm, mm-mm.
It's really interesting.
Was
So,
that the
but
folk style
here's
on your
the
feet, freestyle on the mat thing?
no,
Or
no. I'll send it to you, but just to there, it's run by two guys named Eric Brugel and Tom Hauk, and they're genuinely great human beings. Number one, but number two, there have been a lot of attempts like wrestling leagues, right? There's been a lot of
right,
attempts. You know,
right,
probably the most successful was Real Pro Wrestling, but there was the Agons, and there was this, and there was a bunch, and I don't think people really understand just how difficult it is to start
yeah,
a league like that. But here's the
right,
thing: these two guys know how difficult it is, and they knew that going in, and they approached it in the correct way as best they could. But it's starting to pick up a little bit of steam. They have like club affiliations. They have they have a team aspect of it, which I always thought was pretty integral, right? Like to have
yeah,
a team aspect, you could be a fan of a team. So they're doing the right things, man. And if we don't support it as a community, just because it looks a little different,
Yeah.
we really don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah. And
You
there's
know?
I just think there's gotta be a world for it. You know, there's gotta be a way for it to be mainstream, even if it is a little bit different, because you look at jujitsu and grappling and some of these other things, and man, these freaking dudes are competing into old age. You know, and some of the
Sure.
highest level competitors I think are like late 20s. Like from the outside
Mhm.
looking in. I don't know. It's not my world. I don't know anything about it. But
No,
it looks
yeah,
like
for sure.
the best guys are 25 to 30 probably. And so
Yeah,
it's there's got to be something, you know, like I said earlier in this conversation, I just the one thing that I think could make it work maybe is if it were like if there was an organization like that that was attached to something bigger that was supporting it because they saw the value of the wrestlers, you know, something like the UFC maybe or something like that. I
sure.
don't know. But, you know,
To have it
I'd be
stand on
happy to
itself
support these
is
other guys
difficult.
too. Yeah, it's tough. And until that fan base is really created or the rules are modified enough that it's understandable by a larger population set, I think it's just
Yeah.
I mean, jujitsu, it's like you can break their arm and choke them. I don't really know what I'm watching. I'm just watching two guys flipping around, but I know they can break each other's arms. And so I think that's a little easier to understand than,
Sure.
you know, wrestling's more about establishing control, but
Yeah, no, for sure. No, they're doing a good job, and they have another event this fall, and I'm gonna be working it. I'm pretty stoked, man. It's an interesting concept, but I'll send you some stuff on it. Either way,
yeah,
Kyler,
cool.
thank you so much for coming
Yes, sir.
on and spending some time with us, man. I will see you in Denver tomorrow night. Let's go out and get some pops. What do you think?
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Wait, don't go anywhere before you hit that next button. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.